In 2017, Barcelona paid €105 million for a 20-year-old. 6 years later, they were begging someone, anyone, to take him away. Everybody agreed on the reason he failed. Everybody was wrong. To understand this story, you have to understand what he was bought to do. Neymar had just left. €220 million walked out of Barcelona and went to Paris, and the biggest club in the world had a hole in its attack and a fortune burning in its pocket. So they spent it. $105 million up front, add-ons pushing it toward 145. For a kid who had played exactly one season in Germany. He was 20 years old. He was not signed to be good. He was signed to replace Neymar. Nobody has ever survived a sentence like that. 3 games in, his hamstring tore. Not a strain, a tear, the kind that takes months, the kind that changes how a body trusts itself. He came back. It happened again and again, muscle after muscle, season after season. He would return. He would look electric for 20 minutes, and then the medical report would arrive and the cycle would restart. A player who cost €105 million spent his best years watching from a treatment table. And then the story started. Late to training, late again. Gaming until 4 in the morning, eating badly, missing appointments. The Spanish press turned him into a running joke, and every joke needed a punchline. And the punchline was always the same word. Wasted. Wasted talent. Wasted money. Wasted gift. Here is what nobody said out loud, but everybody meant. The injuries aren't bad luck. He's doing this to himself. He doesn't care enough. That became the official story. And once a story like that hardens around a footballer, it stops being a story. It becomes a fact. By 2021, Barcelona weren't trying to fix him. They were trying to sell him, any club, any fee. Just take the salary off the books. Nobody came. €105 million, one of the most gifted attackers alive, and the market's answer was silence. That is the lowest a career goes. Not being hated, being unwanted. Now, here is the part of this story that got buried. In that same window, in the middle of the humiliation, in the season everyone points to as the proof that he was finished, he led La Liga in assists. Not showed flashes, not had a good month. Led the entire league. More than Benzema's supply line. More than anyone at Real Madrid. More than the players whose names were being used to mock him. The talent wasn't gone. The talent was never gone. It was being measured in public. In the exact season the world had already stopped watching. So if the gift was still there, what exactly was broken? In the summer of 2023, Paris paid his release clause. €50 million. Read that again. Barcelona spent up to €145 million to buy him and let him go for a third of it. And Barcelona fans celebrated. Getting rid of him felt like winning something. He was 26 years old. In football terms, the story was already over. This was the epilogue. And then Luis Enrique arrived. Now, every club Dembele had ever joined had done the same thing with him. Put him on the wing, give him the ball. Pray he stays fit. Manage the personality. Luis Enrique did something else. He looked at a winger who had been a winger his entire life, and he moved him into the middle, into the center of the attack, into the position that demands the 2 things Dembele was famous for not having: discipline and repetition. Everyone thought this was a tactical decision. It wasn't. It was a diagnosis. October 2024, Champions League, Arsenal away. Dembele didn't play. He didn't sit on the bench. He wasn't in the stadium. His own manager sent him back to Paris, not for an injury, for attitude. Think about what that means. At Barcelona, they had done everything except this. They complained, they leaked, they fined, they tried to sell him. Paris drew a line and paid for it, in a Champions League away tie, in public, with the season on the table. It wasn't punishment. It was the first time in his career that a club treated him like he was worth the cost of correcting. He came back, and then the numbers stopped making sense. More than 30 goals in a single season, from a man who had been mocked for not scoring, playing a position he had never played. Ligue 1, the Coupe de France, and in Munich, The Champions League final. Paris 5, Inter 0. Not a win. An execution. The biggest margin the final has ever seen. The club that had chased that trophy for a decade, with Neymar, with Mbappé, with Messi, won it with the player Barcelona couldn't give away. September 2025, Paris, the Ballon d'Or, Ousmane Dembélé, the punchline, the injury report, the €105 million mistake, stood on that stage and was named the best footballer on the planet. 8 years, almost to the month, after his hamstring tore. So what changed? Not his talent. We measured that in 2022 when he was leading the league in assists while being called a waste. Not his body. He still trains, he still risks, he is made of the same muscle that betrayed him at 20. What changed was the room he stood in. For 6 years, one of the most gifted players in the world was handed a shirt, a price tag, and a ghost to replace, and then blamed for not carrying it. Paris didn't find a better Dembélé. Paris built a place where the one that already existed could function. That's the uncomfortable part. We love to say talent isn't enough, that the ones who fall apart just didn't want it badly enough. Dembélé's career says something worse and something kinder. Talent in the wrong place looks exactly like laziness. He was never the problem. He was just never in the right room. And that is the question that should scare every club that ever wrote a player off. How many wasted talents were never wasted at all? How many were just standing in the wrong place, waiting for one person to look at them and see a diagnosis instead of a joke? Barcelona had him for 6 years. They had the best young attacker in Europe, and they sold him for a third of what they paid. The player everyone gave up on is the best in the world. And he got there the moment somebody finally stopped trying to fix him and started trying to understand him.